But have a look through impersonation crimes, the next one. Then once phishing emails are in and are successful, you've got the viruses and the malwares. So that's where a virus will sit on your computer, and there's something called ransomware. So it used to be a case of ransomware would encrypt all of your data so you couldn't have access to it ever again unless you pay a ransom note to whoever's done it. You'd normally pay an anonymous currency, sometimes known as Bitcoin, and then they would give you access to your data back on your own computer. And if you did nothing, it would permanently delete within about 3 days. They've changed their little MO somewhat. So at the moment, if it was me, I would log into one of your computers. I would take a copy of all of your data without knowing. I would then encrypt it on your computer so you don't have access to your own data. And I'd leave one message on your computer basically saying, if you want your data back, then you pay me. Or if you want to prevent me from publishing all of your data online, you pay me. But either way, either everyone gets it and you don't get it. So they're changing their tactics somewhat at the moment. So again, those of you that run your own websites and host your own websites, we're seeing denial of service attacks prevalent at the moment. Hacking of bank accounts, we're all savings and current account owners. Account takeovers, whether that's social media or your own email account. And then we've got unauthorized access of files by staff. So that's not dismissing the fact that those of you that own companies or business owners, that you've got to consider, unfortunately, your own staff. They are an insider threat if they go a little bit rogue, or they might actually be doing it accidentally. That sometimes happens. So that's basically what we're seeing at the moment, up-to-date data. So out of all the UK businesses at the moment, we're seeing about 39% have experienced a cybersecurity breach or attack in the last 12 months. Only 20% of those companies have actually done any sort of cyber drills. So to compare that to like real life stuff, first aid training, we do that quite regularly. That's normally about 4 times a year, isn't it? Fire drills, we did it every Friday. We remember that from primary school, didn't we? When we all had to stand out in the playground at 11 o'clock on Friday morning, rain or shine. We got wet, didn't we? But we learned how to do fire drills. And we're pretty good at that, aren't we? We all leave buildings in a normal manner. We don't collect our belongings. We don't run. We don't do any of the bad stuff, but we practice. But today's threat is cyber. So how many of you, we could do a quick straw poll, can't we? How many of you have actually run a cyber drill in your organization? If you put your hands up or smile button, any of the emojis on Zoom, and we'll see how many of you have done a cyber drill. One, two out of 25. There we go. Real life stats as we see it in the New Forest. So cyber drills, they're pretty important. Practice what you're going to do if you get involved in a cyber incident, how your staff are going to respond, how they phone the IT help desk, all those different things which you should know what to do. So if I said you own a big enough company to have offices all around the world, if your Australian office had an infection of ransomware, if your London office doesn't respond within 4 minutes, you're likely to lose your London office as well. So that's how quick the ransomware can spread around the world. So that's the average cost to rebuild after a cyber incident is just under £8,500 at the moment. 20% of those, 27% of those businesses have experienced at least one breach attack per week. 1 in 2 businesses will close within 6 months after a cyber attack, because they just don't know how to handle this invisible crime. Only 35% of UK businesses actually have a cybersecurity policy in regards to running their own business. So I know you'll all have a risk register running, and you all have a customer services policy. You all have policies for everything, but do you have a cybersecurity one? And as it is, the facts are 1 in 11 UK reported crimes are cyber. So if we now drill it down to the southeast area, so this data includes Surrey, Sussex, Hampshire and Thames Valley. Small business, it's going to cost you about £4,000 to get up and running again after a cyber incident if you're ever affected by something like ransomware. So total cost to businesses in the southeast cyber crimes just around £900,000. we've had in the last 9 months 264 incidents. Yes, break that down. Some of it is Zoom bombing and phishing. So Zoom bombing is obviously people jumping onto this call which weren't expected. But then we've now got 116 of the more serious incidents, and we'll cover that in a second. But what I've been seeing and what experts have commented on is that currently we're finding cyber criminals are in what's called a vulnerability playground. It's quite easy for them to be successful. So we know that the market out there is quite saturated with cyber help. You've only got to go onto Google and say, I need someone to fix my computer, and you'll find hundreds and thousands of responses on there. You don't know who to pick, who's trustworthy, who's going to deliver, who would perform and follow through, who's accredited, who can do this stuff. So the government, Home Office, National Police Chief Council have basically invented or created this concept of the cyber resilience centres. So we're an initiative between police, business and academia. We recognise that we can't arrest our way out of this one. You can't arrest all of the cyber criminals. We need help from private sector as well. We're a not-for-profit concept, and we are going to help businesses protect themselves, and where they need expert help, we're going to provide that affordable help. We're going to bridge the gap between what is sometimes known as complicated cybersecurity messaging from really big organisations, and little businesses think, well, how does that actually affect me? Hackers only go for the big guns, the one with the big amounts of money in their bank, but that's not actually true. They don't really target who they go after. They just know that you might have money and you might want to pay for your stuff back. So we're going to work with the local universities, because it's probably a fact, isn't it, that realistically everyone over the age of 18 struggles with computers, and everyone under the 18 knows how to use computers correctly. So we're going to be using the talent from the local universities. So we've spoken to Surrey, Oxford and New Bucks and Portsmouth and Southampton, and I've personally interviewed about 24 students over the last 3 weeks. And we're going to utilise their skills and their computer science degrees to help provide the affordable services. We're going to be the go-to centre in the area. We will be using the one-stop shop of the National Cybersecurity Centre, and I know a lot of businesses haven't heard of the National Cybersecurity Centre. It is the transparent arm of GCHQ. And I know we all know about GCHQ because we've watched old war films. But how does that actually make New Forest businesses safe? Well, we'll go into that. So, who are we? Where are we? We're all over the show. So we've saturated the country now. We mirror what's called the regional organised crime unit. So I am part of the South East Regional Organised Crime Unit. So I service and provide provisions for the police forces down in the South East, which is Surrey, Sussex, Hampshire and Thames Valley. But the services that I offer are going to be completely the same across the country. So those of you that have got colleagues, friends, family that have businesses in other areas of the country, there is help available across the country with our network. So what is it we do? So everyone can get free membership. So effectively, that's if you go onto our website now, secrc.co.uk, go to the membership section, and on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see the membership packages. Yes, ideally, the police service would like to provide all this for free, but actually to maintain professional accreditation and help and have the assistance to the private sector and the universities, some of the products that we will provide, we are having to charge for it, but it will be at a highly affordable rate in comparison to services that are provided by others. So you can see that we're not reinventing the wheel. Certainly quite a lot of these products and services are already out there, but we can go into some of the services that we offer and see how they may or may not benefit you. So sometimes you might be sold services that you don't actually need, and they'll be sitting in a nice shiny little computer in the corner of your office and you'll never turn it on. So pop onto our website of secrc.co.uk and go to on the left, you can see that core member section. You'll get monthly newsletters from us, which will talk about the latest trends, the latest help. Some of the help is DIY, do it yourself. Some of it you might need a hand with, and some of it gets a little bit more complicated and you need to configure these shiny boxes to keep you safe. But certainly we will assist you down that journey at an affordable rate. So on the left-hand side of the screen, that's what the sign-up page will look like. It's just going to ask you for name, company, what sector, how big you are, and how you heard about us, standard marketing stuff, unfortunately, but we need to track where people are coming from so we know we're targeting the right people. But when we talk about the services that we offer, so we're only offering 9 services. Top left, we've got corporate and individual internet investigations. That's what's called open source intelligence. So it's finding out what is online about you already or online about your company already. So we talk about things like data breaches. Effectively, a data breach is something, let's talk about this week, Facebook, wasn't it? Facebook's unfortunately had its second data breach, which only involved about 500 million people. Now that was their first name, last name. There was sex, email address, mobile phone number. All of this sort of data is quite important, and you put your trust in other companies and they may have mislaid it, unfortunately. If a data breach involves passwords, there is a website that I can go to and I can look up your password. I can then effectively, once I've got your email address, I can try and log into your account with your password. If you haven't got certain configurations set up, I will be able to log into your account. I could then go on to the majority of your other accounts, press the I forgot my password button, which will then come back to the main email account I've got control of. And I can probably take over your life within under 15 minutes. And I'll take over your Sainsbury's, Tesco's, John Lewis, eBay, Amazon. I can take over the majority of your accounts just by one simple data breach. But simple to commit, but also simple to protect. So knowing what is out there on the internet about you already and your company, you can do some protection on it. So that's what open source intelligence is about. Security awareness training is another important thing. You'll find that you and your staff are often your first line of defense and also your last line of defense. So if you've got team inboxes, you've got the inquiries inbox for a small business, email comes in. If someone is monitoring and managing that inbox and they don't quite know what they're doing, and you've never done any cybersecurity training when you onboarded that member of staff, we all assume that we all know what we're doing with computers. We might sometimes get it wrong. So we need to have some security awareness training, which will also encompass things like what to do when it does go wrong, how to prevent it going wrong, what to recognize a phishing email, the symptoms of it. There are some great key indicators on phishing emails on how to recognize them. But that's in a security awareness training. So that's a 2-hour package, which we do. We do training for all of your staff. We used to do it in real life before the days of pandemic, and now we do it on Zoom and Teams, but we will get it done and we make it interactive and we try not to let people go to sleep during the session. We do quite well at that. Remote vulnerability assessments. So those of you that host your own website platforms or those that may use hosted platforms for you, have you set them up correctly? So I know a couple of you mentioned WordPress. So there's obviously add-ons on WordPress websites which need regular attention. When they have updates, if you don't update it at the right time, then there's a vulnerability. And I know plenty, I've done quite enough courses now to know how to successfully hack a WordPress website if you haven't done your updates. So effectively, when your computer says, I'm due an update, or your smartphone, you get that little red circle in the settings to say there's an app that requires an update. That's basically a warning message to you to say someone somewhere has found the vulnerability. Apple, Samsung, Dell, IBM, whoever it is, has fixed it. They've produced a patch and now they've sent it to the device to say, you need to update it. So don't ignore it. Reset your device. It's a good excuse for a 5-minute break to go and put the kettle on whilst your computer does the update. But personally, if my computer tells me I'm due a security update or an installation update, I wouldn't be operating my own business email or I wouldn't be doing any financial transactions on that computer until I've done the update, because I don't know what the vulnerability or weakness is, but I just know there is one. So try not to ignore updates when your computer tells you it needs one. I know it's annoying and computers take 5 minutes to reboot and then you've got to log in again and add all your passwords in, but it's better than being involved in a cyber incident. And it's a good excuse for a cup of tea, isn't it? So remote vulnerability assessments, that is the hacker look from the outside, looking at your internet connected devices. It's what they see from the outside. The internal vulnerability assessment is potentially I've got into your systems and now I can mooch around inside and see what I can get access to. So that's an internal vulnerability assessment. And then for those of you who've got your own web apps that most smartphones these days, everyone's got an app for everything. We can look at the vulnerabilities on apps as well. So those three are vulnerability assessments. We can look at your systems, provide you a report, tell you what the weaknesses are. Yes, you make your own decision on what you want to implement, because you might not have the money in the till to buy the latest Windows software or the Apple software or the update requirements to keep a software licensed. And you make the decision. It's a risk-based decision, isn't it? Because again, you could spend all your money on security and then you'd have no money to run your business. I get you make sensible business acumen decisions, don't you? The next two, security policy review and cyber business continuity exercise. Well, they're all about policies and procedures. And if your staff follow them, it's because it's your business and you want it run correctly and you want to keep your assets safe and secure. There's a policy for everything. As long as you can reference it and it covers everything, generally, most things stay safe. But if you don't have a policy in relation to like a fire or a flood, what do you do when your building gets wet? You don't know where to move to the next building or how to dry it out or who to phone to get the dryer in. You just need a policy, which is a reference document. Partner resource support. Effectively, if you've got, I don't know, 50 computers in your building and they all need Windows 10 putting onto them, for instance, some of you would know how to do that, some of you won't know how to do that. We have access to certain students that can do orderly installation, make sure you've got proper malware protection and an up-to-date antivirus turned on. So if Windows 10 has got Windows Defender in it, make sure it's turned on. Make sure it is defending you. It's there, it's free, just turn it on. So we can just make sure some of those things take place. If we then get into the situation where you want to roll out a whole new load of Office 365, I'm going to go geek on you. So we need to roll out Office 365, turn on 2FA and MFA, make sure you've got antivirus and an anti-malware protection solution on there. All of a sudden, if I talk geek, I've lost you. And what does all of that achieve? Well, to a techie person, everything I just said would be understandable, but to those that are non-tech, I need to convert it into a language that you understand. It's simply all about keeping your business safe online. When you go to a restaurant, you could be greeted by front of house. If you go to a nightclub, you'll be greeted by a bouncer. In relation to your cybersecurity, you'll be greeted by a firewall. But if you haven't told the firewall how to behave and how to protect your company, how does it know how to respond when certain weird things happen? So I know at home, we have a BT Home Hub, don't we, and a Sky router. It's effectively, when you open it up, plug it in, you should be changing the default password on your router. Not a lot of people do that, but certainly you can go onto YouTube now and type in passwords for BT Home Hubs, and you can see a whole range of passwords for home hubs. How many of you have got your router on the windowsill at home because you get really good reception? Is it behind or in front of a window? Because if it is, what is on the back of a router? It's the password. So the burglar that walks past your house will look through the window and see the password to your router and then just write it down and log in. Once you're on the same network as someone, there's added risks. So I do understand why people put routers on windowsills. If you have, can you just cover up the password that is visible to everyone on the back of it? Simple protective measure. Hopefully Elaine's not walking off to a windowsill now, but it's a simple protective measure to make sure that you can stay safe from a simple attack. So if there's some more complicated stuff that needs doing, we have access to what's called our trusted partners. So they are what's called a Cyber Essentials certified body. They can make your system safe. They work to a certain framework. They're accredited and governed by what's called the IASME consortium. So the IASME consortium works to the National Cybersecurity Centre standards. So Cyber Essentials is probably very suitable to micro and small business. It will cost you just over £300 to get Cyber Essentials, but you actually get free cyber insurance with that. So Cyber Essentials comprises of about 76 questions. It will say, if you have a password management policy, is your password at least 8 characters long? Does every user have their own unique login? So there should be no shared logins. Do you have antivirus turned on and update automatically? Do you scan daily or weekly? All these basic questions, and I know there's about 76 of them, but once you answer yes or turn on certain things or achieve a certain standard, you can get the Cyber Essentials standard. Now, once you achieve Cyber Essentials, you are highly unlikely to be a victim of a cyber attack, because some of the security controls within Cyber Essentials will make it more difficult for a cyber offender to attack your business. And if they find it difficult, they just go on to the next one. So have a look at Cyber Essentials as a way of protecting your business. Yes, I know there's a cost implication to it, but £300 plus VAT doesn't massively break the bank, but you also get free cyber insurance with it. So again, there's plus points to that. If you want to go down that journey, do speak to us and we can see how far off you are from that. But it is quite a good entry level benchmark for cybersecurity on small and micro business. Oh my God, that's it. I've come to the end. So I haven't had any questions from anyone yet, but obviously do ask now if you want to run through anything. There's no such thing as a silly question. Certainly, I've got nothing in the chat. I'll move in, change it, doesn't take too long. Route is now moved from my window. So yeah, if anyone's got any questions, my time is yours.
Thanks, Chris. And we've got 5 or 6 minutes, so please do ask away. A number of people create websites here, a number of people are in technical spheres, so please, any points here, remembering we have the opportunity to go into more detail on our business briefing when Chris returns on Thursday, the 20th of May. I've said that now in case I forget to say that at the end, but Thursday, the 20th of May, we have a longer session to get into a bit more detail. I think David Lawrence is first.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for that. Very interesting by way of an update, and it's always moving on, as you pointed out. The kind of services that are offered on the SECRC services website that you talked about, just ballpark, what kind of figures are we talking about to take advantage of those sort of things?
So if we talk about security awareness training.
No, I wasn't thinking about so much. I was more to do with sort of stress testing your own systems.
Oh, right. Okay. That will have to be like an offline phone call. And the reason being is I don't know how big or small your business is. I don't know how many computers you've got. I don't know how many users you've got. I don't know how many servers, virtual servers or real servers you've got. So to chat through that, for me to do a calculate on how many servers you've got to check and how many users I've got to check, that's how we work out how to price a job, if that makes sense.
I do. So it's done on a bespoke basis then, effectively.
It's done on a day rate. But if you have an office in the New Forest, an office in the Isle of Wight, and an office in London, I know we've got 3 offices. Yep. Each of those offices might have 50 computers. You might be using cloud services. You might actually have your own server. So I need to ask those sort of questions with you.
I understand
that. Can generate how much time I need to allocate for one of my students to actually do the assessment.
Okay. Well, let's just take a typical one that, you know, let's say just not for my own business, which is probably a little bit bigger than some, but say you've got, say, half a dozen employees with half a dozen PCs, shall we say, and a server. So maybe crudely that might be described as a small business of an NFPP member, for example. That kind of arrangement.
So we roughly work out
just ballpark. No one's going to hold you to anything.
Yeah, no, we roughly work out to be about a third of the price of commercial suppliers that do it. So if we said a vulnerability scan would normally cost for a Nessus vulnerability scan is about £2,500 for unlimited scans throughout the year. We do extra stuff obviously on top of that, but we normally about a third of the price. So if you ask for a scan, commercially might cost you £5,000. We would do it for about between 1,500 and 2,000.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
The security awareness, so that's a technical control. The security awareness training would be, for instance, everyone on this call. It's a 2-hour input. Obviously, I would do a break at the hour because we all need drinks. But certainly for 2 hours, it roughly works out to be about £500 for the 2-hour training. At the moment, I deliver it on Teams or Zoom, so multiple people can log in. But in the good old days, when humans could interact, I'd come to a big conference room and I would chat through and speak in real life. So yeah, it's something that I was going to chat to Matthew with earlier, that if as a group you all wanted to purchase, I don't know, security awareness training, and I'll go through a 2-hour input for you, or you could probably bring on some of your staff, but for each session it'd be roughly £500. But you've got bulk buying power here, haven't you?
Great, thanks, Chris. Sorry, my phone's going off in every direction.
That's okay.
Phil is our
Phil's got his hand
technical
up, isn't
wizard
he?
in the New Forest, and he's got a question for you.
Hi, Chris. That was interesting. Thank you. Email, is it still considered to be relatively insecure as it has over previous years, especially with encryption being used so much more today? Are people safe to be able to put personal information into an email yet? Would you say?
Well, that's a loaded question, isn't it?
Well, I work in tech support.
So you've obviously got secure email and insecure email. So secure email is what I guess a conversation I'd have with Justin. In the police national network, we have the ability to secure email. Obviously, the military and other different outlets do have it. And then in the commercial world, you have your own. So like Proton Mail is a secure email provider. Hotmail, Yahoo, those sort of people are just bulk standard email providers. If I emailed my bank code and sort code in a written email to Phil, and then he wanted some other type of sensitive message, then I would send the last part of that message probably through WhatsApp or iMessage to a different device. So I would use a different platform to communicate the whole of that message. I wouldn't always do it in the same email. Why? Right. There's something called man-in-the-middle attacks. So if you go into your own Yahoo or your Hotmail or Gmail accounts, would you be comfortable enough looking through all the auto forwarding rules, see how many active sessions there are running on your account? So when I say active sessions, if I log into my Gmail account using my iPhone, that's 1 active session. If I then log into the same account with my iPad, that's 2 active sessions. I then go to the local hotel using their computer and log into the same Gmail account, that's 3 active sessions. If I don't log out properly from any of those devices, they are always going to be connected forever and a day.
Yeah.
And they're all called active sessions. So that's why if you ever go to like an internet cafe, if those things even still exist these days, and you log in to your email account, if you're on something called a shared computer, so it's one that's not sole use to you, once you move away from it, someone could log back into your stuff, and that's an active session.
Right.
So you need to check your email accounts that you recognize all of the users that are currently logged in. There's something called auto forwarding. So if I send you an email, it will auto forward every single email to a designated email address of my choice. Now that's a favored tactic of criminals, that they will, if they manage to get into your email account, they will set up a couple of rules so they get a copy of everything that you see. They will then do a wildcard search, and they will look out for something called a keyword search for invoice. They will watch when you get to the point where you're going to pay an invoice, because they know at that point there's going to be an exchange of sort code and account numbers. At that point, they would then do what's called a business email compromise, and they would then send you an email from the person that you were going to pay, pretending to be them. And they say, oh, by the way, we've changed our bank accounts. Can you just update your sort code and account number? You then pay the wrong person, and you probably won't find out until the supplier says, yeah, are you actually going to pay me this month or what? And you go, I already have. And then you check for your accounts and you realize you've been compromised. So we see offenders could sit in someone's email account or could sit inside your compromised IT systems on average for about 180 days before they choose to do something. Why? Because they're learning your behavior. They're learning how often you back up. They're learning how often you pay suppliers. And they would normally do something annoying on a Friday afternoon of a bank holiday weekend when they know you've all gone home for a long period, and you're unlikely to see the results until Tuesday.
That's interesting. Thank you.
No worries. Anybody else? this is not supposed to be a scaremongering session, but Elaine.
If I could, yeah, Matthew, if I could just possibly, before we go maybe to Elaine or Jane, just a little bit of a plug sort of in support of what Chris has said, but I really would encourage you all to have a look at our website, if not at least the main thrust of the CRC for the South East region is really to become the lead voice around cybersecurity and cyber resilience for all of the SMEs across our region. What we aim to do is collate and be a one-stop shop for all of the legitimised advice that's coming out from such organisations as the National Cybersecurity Centre, Department of Education, Department of Culture and Media, and Sport, etc. So actually, as a business, when you're trying to navigate your way through the minefield and the myriad of advice and news articles that come through, is actually by going to us, you'll be in a position to actually understand what is relevant, what is current. And indeed, a lot of this is really quite simple. Chris is very, very technical. I'm very much the Luddite of the partnership in relation to, from the perspective of if I can understand it, then hopefully the vast majority of people can understand it. But a lot of these provisions that you can put in place yourself, very simplified, there's some really simple rules, and you have access to, as I say, a lot of the advice from organisations such as the National Cybersecurity Centre. And by following a lot of those, and certainly the principles of Cyber Essentials, you will be in a position to significantly strengthen your own internal network, your own company, even if you don't take advantage of any of our commercial offerings.
Great. No, thanks, Justin. I think there were just one or two quick questions. Elaine and then Jane, maybe. Yeah.
I have a quick question, please. A really interesting session. Thank you. If someone were to receive a ransomware and they pay the amount, how often do these criminals actually give you back your information, or does that just never happen?
So, good question. So it's all to do with propaganda, and they all have their own marketing and accountancy teams as well. These organised crime gangs actually have proper business setups because they've all watched Dragon's Den and what was that other one?
The Apprentice?
Oh, yeah, The Apprentice. There we go. So they all watch these programs and they learn as well. So effectively, if pretend I'm the cyber criminal then, and I put ransomware on your system, and I say, if you want your data back, you have to pay me 1 Bitcoin, which is at the moment 1 Bitcoin is about average. Now, currently, those of you in the financial world will know exactly how much the value of a Bitcoin is. Today, I think it stands at about £45,000. So if you paid up and me as the criminal didn't release anybody's details back to them, you would soon post that online and I'd get a bad reputation. I'll be a bad criminal because don't deal with Chris because he never gives your stuff back. However, if I give everybody stuff back, I'm going to make less money. So the criminals do consider their own reputation, and they think they are good criminals and bad criminals, but we all know most criminals are bad criminals, but they consider propaganda as well. So it is a 50-50 whether you get your money back. But from the official government point of view, I cannot recommend that you pay any ransom because it does obviously go to eventually organised criminals and terrorism. But certainly you don't always get your data back even if you pay.
And presumably there's nothing to stop them once they've given it back, sending you another ransomware in a few months' time. So, and
we see that as well. So if you pay up, they go, oh, there's a victim here that pays up. So give it 6 months and we're going to attack them again because they're likely to pay again. Yes, we do see examples of what's called secondary infections. So if they found a vulnerability on your system and you didn't know about it and you don't do something about it, yes, they will come back at you. Jane, I think you were going to have a question.
Okay, so this is the stupid question.
There's no such thing.
So on our own computers, when we are just working discreetly on our own laptop, say,
yeah,
but admittedly has access to a whole wealth of very important information,
yeah,
but only controlled by one of us.
Yeah.
If we religiously ignore all emails that are not from people that we know, or even if they say they're from people that we know, we can see straight away it's the wrong email address sending them, because I get loads of those.
Yeah.
Can we still get hacked?
So if an email comes in to your inbox and you think, I don't recognize that, and you do nothing with it, and you just put it in your deleted box, or you mark it up as spam and chuck it in your junk box, you're fine.
Okay.
If the email comes in and it says, hi, Jane, I know your password, that's a classic, and they will actually provide you your password and you look at it, then I would suggest you being subject of a data breach. So out of your control, and we can name things like British Airways, we've got EasyJet, we've got Cathay Pacific, Marriott, Facebook, they've all had data breaches, haven't they? Talk, Carphone Warehouse, it's the who's who list these days. A lot of people have had data breaches. If you use the same password over multiple accounts and you've never changed your password in the last 10 years and you're subject of data breach, then the password is likely to be successful, isn't it? If they're encouraging you to download something, as long as you don't download it, even if you open the email and read it, but you don't actually click on the button and download it, you're still safe. So I guess we're kind of, and it always happens in these sessions, you get so much stuff that you want to throw in, but you haven't got enough time. So you could open up, I could take a picture of everyone now on this screen, and I could then send you that picture in an email. But using something called Steganography, I could hide a virus inside that picture, send it in the email, and you know pictures are sent under .jpg, JPEGs. Well, by the mere fact of you opening up that picture and seeing a picture of yourself, I would have managed to put the virus on your machine.
Well, that's pretty scary.
But you don't open attachments from strangers that you don't know. If you had a virus scanner on your machine, so if we had Windows 10 with Windows Defender operating, and you opened up that picture and it was doing its job successfully, it'd say, I'm not opening up that JPEG because there's a virus in it. I could hide a macro virus, which is a different type of virus again. I could hide a macro virus in any Microsoft Office products. So I can successfully hide viruses in Excel, PowerPoint, and Word. You open up the document, depending on what software you're using, whether you get displayed macros disabled or Excel opened in protected version, you're safe. But if you enable the macros or disable protected viewing, you then give permission for the virus to get onto your machine straight away. So we would go into that. These are the sort of questions and the sort of things that I would explain in what's called the security awareness training session, because you only need to know a certain amount, but you can protect yourself very well with doing some very basic cybersecurity hygiene.
Thanks a lot, Jane.
Thank
and
you.
Thanks, Chris. And if you thought that was scary, Chris will be back on the 20th of May. He's back for a longer session because, as you've seen, there are a whole range of questions. And, you know, in that hour-long session, Chris will have the chance to explore things in a bit more detail. So that's the 20th of May. It's all there on the NFBP website for booking. So please do join us then if you can. Chris, Justin, thank you so much for your time today. I know it's really important that you get your message out to local businesses, and we'll help you do that in any way we can. We'll pass on messages when we start doing face-to-face events. If you do one locally, we'll promote that and help our local businesses be as secure as possible. This time next week, we're back. Then we'll be looking at our health, literally, because Ben will be joining us to explain why health insurance is a valuable asset for people who are running their own businesses. So Ben from WPA will be with us next Wednesday. Thanks everyone so much for your time, and do join us again, and particularly come back on the 20th of May. Chris, Justin, thank you so much indeed.
No problems. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.
Good luck, Matt.
Bye.
That was a really good session.
Yeah.
So you win some, you lose some when it comes to cybersecurity presentations, is what we've learned.